morning and welcome all to this session of Stroke Support India, which we hope to have more regular also going forward, where we're going to talk about essentially people who have either suffered or observed stroke at close quarters and are managing that well, and also perhaps serving as an inspiration to others. So I have with me today Latisha. Latisha is living in Gold Coast. She's joining us from there. She had an ischemic stroke about 10 years ago at about age 35, and still has some physical disabilities, but more recovery has been more mental and emotional. And now she's living with a purpose to help other stroke survivors. She volunteers her time to the stroke groups, as well as to the Gold Coast University Hospital. Also has a business called Stroke Support Australia to assist stroke survivors with their rehabilitation and independence aspects, and has written a book, Finding Yourself After Stroke, which is a compilation of the lived experiences of stroke survivors. And we'll be talking about that, of course, more as we go forward. So thank you very much, Latisha, for joining in. And
well, thank you for having me on today
to speak to us. And let us start with how it all happened. When stroke occurred to you, what were you doing before that? Your profession, your lifestyle, hobbies, friends. You can tell us a little bit about that. Then we'll take it further.
Sure, thank you. So I, as you mentioned, I was 35 when I had my stroke. My stroke happened in my sleep. So it was quite sudden and impactful. Prior to my stroke, I worked in aged care. So I was in aged care administration, and my job, I was required to be on call 24/7. It was quite stressful, but it was the job that I thought I wanted to do my entire life. So I thought my life was great and that I was living my dream. That's what I thought. Then I brought some work home one night, and as I did, it was just normal for me to bring work home. I put my kids to bed, and then I would still do some more work. And I was up one night. I had a really, really bad headache. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't focus. But it was after hours. I had home doctors come out to my house and give me an injection of pain relief. And then I felt tired, so I went to sleep, and next to my 4-year-old. So I was sleeping next to my 4-year-old at the time. Then I woke up at about 1 o'clock in the morning with this headache that had returned. It was so bad. I went to get up and I knew, oh, I can't walk. So before I got up to walk, I just knew straight away I can't walk. I had pins and needles on the right side of my entire body, so right from my head all the way through to my toes. And in mum mode, I then became more concerned for the child that was sleeping next to me. Rather than thinking, what's wrong with me? I'm thinking, I don't want to wake up my little boy that's sleeping next to me. So I was calling out because I thought, oh, I need some Panadol, paracetamol for my headache, painkillers. But I don't know if anyone could hear me or if I was making any sense. No one heard me. No one came to me, and I thought, it's fine. It's probably just a migraine, a really, really bad headache. It'll be gone by the morning. When the morning came, the sun came up, and I couldn't see anything at all out of the right side of both of my eyes. And I had no feeling on the right side of my body. And that's when I knew, oh, something is seriously, seriously wrong with me. And so I tried to get up again and walk, but I was banging into the walls. I couldn't navigate myself around, and I knew I needed to see somebody. But at no time did I think that I was having a stroke. So I went to a medical centre, and at the medical centre, they thought that I had a migraine, and they gave me some more painkillers and sent me home and told me to rest. And so I was resting for a few days, but nothing got better. And then so I thought, oh, I need to go and see a doctor again, because at no time did I think I'm having a stroke. So I went to another doctor, and the other doctor said, okay, I think you need to go to hospital. So now it's 4 days later, and I get to hospital, and they did some tests, and they said, oh, we think you've had a stroke. So I was then transferred to a different hospital who had a stroke ward. And then that was when it was confirmed that I had a stroke. So I didn't ever think that I was having a stroke. It was quite a surreal experience to me, especially because I'd worked in aged care and nursing homes, and I'd seen people have strokes in front of me before. At no time did I ever think or suspect that that's actually what was happening to me.
Yeah, that's interesting. You said you were in healthcare or administration earlier. And
Yeah.
then it did not strike you, it did not strike even the doctors who saw you initially, which is quite, it is unfortunate, but it is quite common experience, even in India. We see many people who go to a doctor does not suspect stroke initially. We have, for example, someone who went to an ENT because he was having some eye issues, and eye doctor kind of delayed that whole thing for about 2 days before, he said, no, this is probably not an eye, probably this is something else. And those delays, as we all know, they do matter a lot. One should get as timely a treatment as possible. We talk of the golden hour or 3.5 hours of treatment. But I'm just curious. Of course, you mentioned that you had you told me that you had some heart issues, a hole in the heart. Did you know about that earlier, or did you come to know about it after the stroke occurred?
Yeah. So I came to know about it after my stroke. So I was diagnosed with my stroke and on the Monday, and then on the Tuesday they started doing some investigations to find out what caused the stroke. And when I did the echocardiogram on my heart, that's when they saw that I had a hole in my heart. Which had always been there my entire life, but I just never had any complications until I had my stroke.
And why does that occur? Is that a genetic thing, or is it something which just happens to some people, not to others? Why does that occur?
It actually is something we're all born with. So when we're all in utero, we all have a hole in our heart because we don't need our lungs to breathe. And then when we're born and we're out into the world and we can start inhaling oxygen, that the flap closes. But in some people, it doesn't close. And then it's called a PFO, or patent foramen ovale, PFO for short. And so that's the flap that doesn't close over. And when it doesn't close, the blood can sometimes not travel through freely, and it can cause clots. And we all have blood clots, and they normally don't affect us. Our body can dissolve them, but sometimes if they get into our arteries, they can travel up and into our brain and cause a stroke.
Oh, okay. So about 3 days later it was properly diagnosed as stroke, and you were in Gold Coast at the time itself?
Yes.
So what would you attribute it to? Would you attribute it to maybe poor diagnosis or poor health facilities? I don't know how it is in Gold Coast. In India, of course, that is almost an expected thing. But how are the facilities in Gold Coast, the health, infrastructure?
We're pretty fortunate here where we are. We do have we have an excellent healthcare system. It was just that the stroke, what it looks like in young persons, isn't widely known or widely talked about. there's not enough awareness for it. And so while our facilities are world class, sometimes uh, our um, our symptoms can go under the radar, so that they're not picked up as stroke.
Correct. They are not initially, no one raises the flag of, stroke also.
Yes.
So perhaps it may be more useful, because even if it's a false alarm, it's a false alarm, but
Right.
at least we can rule out, those kind of situations. But then you said that you could, even after the stroke occurred, could you drive around to the medical facility, or how did you manage that?
Oh no, I couldn't drive. I couldn't. I had pins and needles on the right side of my entire body, and I couldn't see. My head was thumping so badly. I could barely talk or concentrate. So I did have somebody else drive me, and it wasn't until I got to the hospital 4 days later and ended up in a hospital ward, that they realised, oh, she's had a stroke. But I haven't been able to drive since. So it's been 10 years since my stroke, and my license was suspended. And 10 years later, I'm still not driving.
You're still not driving.
Still not driving.
Okay.
No.
Okay. And at the hospital, did they do some surgery, or what did they do? Or did they do some injections? What happened at the hospital?
Um, so I did have surgery, but it wasn't immediate. It was a few years later. I had a PFO closure. So I
Okay,
had
so
I had a device put into my heart that, it's like a clamp, and it comes in and it closes and closes that hole in the heart to reduce the risk of further stroke.
okay, but as far as the brain is concerned, they did not give you any drugs or anything like that. The attempt was to close the heart primarily.
I'm on aspirin, but in the workup to the PFO closure, I was on blood thinners. So I was on clopidogrel, I think that's how you say it, I'm not sure, prior to the closure, and then for I think about 3 or 6 months afterwards. And now I'm just on low dose aspirin.
And what was your mental and physical status, at the time of discharge? What were the primary effects that you could see?
At the time of discharge, I was still very much in denial that I'd had a stroke. It was quite challenging for me to be a young person, an independent person, to have a stroke and end up on a stroke ward. And the stroke ward that I was in was full of elderly people, and the elderly people were far worse than I was. And I just felt, one, I shouldn't be there, and I felt very, very disconnected to my environment. It was quite an isolating experience, and it sent me on probably, I would say, a whirlwind of depression for a couple of years while I had to come to terms with the fact that I was a young person that had a stroke.
But there were hopefully no physical disabilities per se as such at the time of your discharge.
The vision hasn't returned. So when you look at me, you see me, but what I see is different. So I have what they call hemianopsia. So I can't see out of the right side of both of my eyes. So my vision is very limited.
And it cannot be corrected by surgery or by special glasses or anything like that.
No, not by glasses, because it's not my eye, it's my brain. So the lobe in my brain died, and so the way I explain it to people is, you've got your vision here in your brain, and you've got your eyes here, but something knocked out the bridge. So that bridge can't be repaired. And unfortunately, the occipital lobe is the only area in the brain that can't rewire itself. So I can't use the neuroplasticity to rebuild my vision.
Which is perhaps the reason why I cannot drive as of now also, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What about any assistive devices? Like, can you work on the computer? How does that, if at all, how does that happen?
Yeah. And I have a little bit of weakness still in my right hand, but yeah, I work. I can still navigate because I can move my eyes and I can move my head, so I can still get things done.
Hmm. 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 And what about your job? What did you manage? Are you to get back to the job, or did it help you, or the employer help you in any manner in your stroke recovery?
No, I lost my job when I had my stroke, and I was in hospital for about 3 weeks, and then I came out of hospital and I had some meetings with my directors at work, and they said, we think you should resign. And so I resigned, and yeah, I couldn't go back to my work. So now I just work for myself at home, and I do a lot of volunteered work, unpaid and paid volunteer work from home, which suits me and my kids
Yeah.
because I can't drive.
That was a private employer, that, or was it a government employer that you were working with?
Say again?
Was that a private company you were working with, or was it a government company that you were working at the time?
It was a private employer.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay. But how does it work in Australia? In India, of course, I'm sure there's a huge difference. Do you get some social security benefits? Does something like that happen when you have, an incident like this? And is that sufficient, or does that require a certain level of disability? What is the system there?
Yeah, our systems are probably very, very different. Um, I did fall between the cracks here in Australia, so I did not meet the eligibility. I wasn't eligible to receive disability payment. Um, but we do have systems in place for parents. So I'm just going to bring this little person next to me who's standing next to me.
I-
I am a parent. Um, I had this boy after my stroke, and because I'm a parent, I am eligible for parenting payments. So I do receive some payments to look after him.
Oh, okay.
But
Which
in
has got
terms of disability, no, there was nothing there for me for my disability, even though it is permanent.
Okay, okay, which has got nothing to do with your stroke that you would have got anyway as your parenting benefits, even if you did not have the stroke, right?
Right, right. So I fell between the cracks, and I feel like I need to really advocate for what's there for financially for people in Australia after a stroke, because when I had my stroke, there wasn't a lot. It has changed now. We do have disability insurance and things like that that you can apply for. But when I had my stroke, that those things weren't there.
Okay, yeah. Even in India, there's things are changing a bit. Stroke was not it is covered by insurance for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Only very recently, slowly they are turning around to that. In fact, we have a so-called People with Disability Act. It's a government act
Mm-hmm.
which supposedly provides, for whatever it is worth, certain benefits to people with disabilities. Stroke is not explicitly mentioned there, even now. Although some of the effects of stroke, for example, motor disability or aphasia, are mentioned, but stroke as such is not, and it requires a certain level of disability, as they claim about 40% disability.
Yeah.
For someone to get a so-called disability certificate and then be eligible for government aid, although government aid to begin with is very, very minimal. But then it gives you certain tax benefits. So primarily, yes, even in India, uh, for treatment also, one is left on pretty much on one's own. What
Yes.
about treatment? Was it covered by the government, or what happened there?
Um, so mine, no. So my stroke was 10 years ago, and 10 years ago, those things weren't in place here. So as you were saying, here in Australia, stroke used to fall under acquired brain injury. It wasn't a thing of its own, whereas it's only just beginning to be a thing of its own now. So there's still a lot of work to be done. I don't want to be negative about it, because there are people in Australia who have had strokes and they do receive a lot of support and a lot of help and a lot of funding through our Medicare and our government. I wasn't one of those, but I can probably reapply now 10 years later.
Okay. And then hopefully you will be eligible for those benefits or grants or.
Yes.
And what about employment prospects? You think there are certain employment prospects for stroke affected, or maybe the government gives them some training or gives them some, opportunities, or private employment perhaps?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it's challenging because I'm a parent and I don't have family around. So I can't say, oh, here's my child and give my child to family to look after, because I don't have that family. So for me to go to work, I have to be completely self-sufficient. And it does have its challenges.
Right. But there are, at least the government is making some efforts for others who are able to go out or get a job. They do get a job. They do get into the mainstream. Have you seen any examples of, the stroke affected?
Yeah, I have. But there's still challenges there. So I do see people going back to work, but I don't see people going back to work who have a lot of massive physical disabilities. So people who with hemiparesis or hemiparalysis and things like that, I don't see them being employed. I myself have tried to get a job many times. I've applied for jobs, I've gone to job interviews, and then I disclose that I'm a stroke survivor and I don't get employed. So, I've had quite a lot of challenges being employed myself, which is why I chose just to work for myself from home.
Correct. Well, I think even in India, yeah, that is a challenge, because of course it's a very competitive job market. So, but sometimes people do try, even to the extent of changing their careers. They take up a different career altogether. For example, maybe some, with yourself and some others. I did hear about someone in Singapore who opened a bakery, consequent to a stroke. Of course, he needs support. We have someone in our group who has very recently opened a pharmacy.
Oh, awesome.
But then of course it does need, it cannot be a sole effort of that single person. They need to have financial backing. They need to have family supporting, other relatives pitching in. So that does matter a lot. And if you're alone, I can imagine it is doubly difficult. And coming to therapies, are you any special therapy you underwent at that time, or are you still undergoing something, trying some, physiotherapy, or sometimes people try acupuncture, etc.? I don't know if you tried some of those, or what is your experience been?
So I haven't had a massive physical rehabilitation post-stroke. So I didn't have hemiparalysis. I just had I had the weakness.
The vision and the weakness, yes.
It did return. And it's really quite challenging, because I think, I compare myself to other people that have had strokes, and I think, oh, well, was my stroke not that bad, because I didn't end up with such severe physical disabilities. But then at the same time, I had the mental and emotional disabilities. I lost my job, I lost my family, I lost my friends, I was on my own. I then had a child and I had no money. you know, it was challenging in a different way for me.
Right, right. No, I'm sure it must have been a tremendously challenging times. And you had your baby after the stroke. How many were you pregnant at
Yeah.
the time of the stroke, or how did that happen after that stroke?
I was pregnant before my stroke, but I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't know. And it took a couple of months before I realized, I think something could be happening here. And yeah, I got the test and I was pregnant. And um, they told me not to go through with the pregnancy, that it was far too high risk. But obviously I did go through with it and here he is. And I had him via C-section.
Yes, yes. And what about friends and family at the time? What is your experience with them? Did they kind of support you in any manner, or I mean, I don't know the social structure in Australia or in your specific. What was their, let's say, role, if at all, in your recovery, so as to say?
Most people in Australia have very supportive families, but I didn't. So, but that happened prior to my stroke. So prior to my stroke, I was in a dysfunctional family unit, but my stroke really brought that out. So after I had my stroke, they kind of all dissipated and left. So the person standing behind me hasn't met the people that I grew up with.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So people are even now far apart, and even now not in touch with you. What about friends? Did you have any friends, or did they?
The same thing happened. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I mean with the emotional side of it. For me was very challenging, and I do feel grateful that my deficits aren't as severe as others, because if they were, I don't think I'd still be alive. Like it would have been too great for me to have to go through it all on my
own. But as you know, sometimes there are hidden strengths that also come out when one is faced with adversities, and you are doing wonderfully, not only for yourself, you're also trying to help others, inspiring others, and in the efforts that you are making now. So how did after the stroke, how did this thought of volunteering and working to help others, how did that come about?
It came about through my own experience, because I just felt so alone. So for the first couple of years post-stroke for me, because I didn't have massive physical deficits, I was kind of discharged into the community on my own. So I was left to my own devices. I didn't have a physiotherapist or an occupational therapist or a speech therapist or anyone that I was connecting with after my stroke. It was just me. And I became very isolated. I couldn't go back to my job. I then lost my job. So I lost my income, I lost my money, I lost my identity. And it was a really dark place for a little while. And when I learned to get over that and accept what had happened to me and where I was, and that I could learn to rebuild myself internally and find happiness again, I thought, I need to pay this forward to other people, because it's been a long time for me. It took a long time for me to get there, and for the last probably 3 or 4 years, I've really wanted to give back to other people who are struggling post-stroke, because I think we all do at some point. I think we all kind of struggle with our identity and the loss of who we were and the things that won't be the same again. And it's something, if you haven't experienced it, you can't really understand it. So I wanted to connect with others and just let other people know, you're not alone. all of our strokes may be different. All of our strokes may have happened for different reasons. All of our post-stroke disabilities might be different. But we're all really connected by this same thing, which is a stroke.
Correct. Correct. We're all, there's a common thread, through all who are on this journey. But during your, let's say, recovery, or during these thoughts that were going in your mind, was there any specific incident, some people you met, maybe some books you read, or maybe something from the past came back that this is how I will make sense of my life going forward? Anything that strikes in your mind that this was when I made up my mind that this is how I'm going to be living my life going forward? Any incident that stands out in your mind? Or was it a slow process of self-realization?
To begin with, it was quite slow, but it got to a point where I just got sick of it, because I was always very vibrant and happy and full of energy. And I just got tired of not being that. And I needed to find me again. I needed to bring that spark back. And I just found through connecting with other people, talking to other people, sharing our stories, and that sort of thing, that brought that spark back in me. But in turn, it was also bringing the spark back in others as well.
Correct, correct. No, that is something that many people are, sometimes they draw into their shells, and it does happen very, very frequently. We get into that phase of why me, why did it happen to me, and it carries on, it continues. But once you become very depressed, particularly when, for example, the physiotherapy is, or the speech therapy is not yielding results. It is, as you said, it's a very dark space to be in. I can understand that. My experience of stroke comes actually from my mother, who suffered a stroke for about 6 years, and I, being the only son and being very, very close to her, was very deeply involved. Although to be very frank, even I cannot imagine her thoughts, because no one can walk in your shoes. You all walk our own paths and in our own shoes. And there are so many times, so many things I might have done differently. I don't know. There are still regrets. But yes, it is a path that it's a difficult place to be in, and it is whatever support one can get. Of course, in India, luckily for her, yes, a strong family, very, very close-knit family all around, primarily being me and my father. But still, we faced a host of issues, particularly to do with perhaps with medical infrastructure, which is pathetic in India. It's nothing to talk about. And of course, the consequent financial difficulties, etc. So that is what we even in our groups, we try to encourage, as you might have seen, because as you rightly said, even speaking to some on a similar journey,
to
some extent, that itself is a therapy, that is helping not only myself, it is also helping the other, that we can communicate, we can grow further, we can find more purpose. And there are people in our group, there are people who turned from an alcoholic to bodybuilders, consequent to stroke, and now are trying to help best they can to others as much as possible as they can. So as of now, you are pretty independent. You can do your daily tasks, at least in your home. That is, your chores are possible in spite of your physical or vision problems. That is possible now?
Yeah. So I still have the vision deficit, and I still have the right hand weakness deficit. But apart from that, I mean, I am pretty independent, so I still can't drive. But apart from that, I can still do everything else.
And how many other children you have besides the young one here?
3. So this is my young one. And then there are 3 older boys. The older 2 have moved out of home. So they were 11 and 12 when I had my stroke, and they're now in their early 20s and live independently on their own. And I have a 14-year-old. So the little boy who was sleeping next to me when I had my stroke, he is now 14.
Okay. Okay. So you have two of your sons living with you now, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
One is 14 and the other is how much?
And this one is 9.
Okay. And they go to school, or they are being homeschooled, or how does that work?
A bit of both. So this one goes to school full time, and the other one is on the autism spectrum, and he goes to school some days and he stays home some days.
Okay. Okay. And the elder ones, they have moved out of your home. They are staying independently.
They live on their own. Yeah.
But they have got jobs. They are settled.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They have jobs and go to university. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's good. But they're still in touch with you off and on. They do come.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that is great. And how did this thought of volunteering with the hospital authority, and how did that come about? Did they approach you, or one fine day you went to them? How did that happen?
I approached them. Actually, no, I saw them do a call out and I applied. So I saw that they had advertised for consumers to come onto a consumer group, and I applied, and I had to have an interview, and I was successful for that. And that's so my role in that is I'm a member of the consumer group at the local university hospital. And so I attend meetings and I give my feedback and I participate in things, and I meet with professionals in the hospital and do rounds and provide feedback and just do my part as a person who has lived experience to help make things better for other people in the future.
So this group, consumer advisory group, it's the patients group, is it? What is it for the hospital? What is exactly is it?
So there's a bunch of us with different lived experience. So there's myself with stroke, there's people with cancer, there's people with mental health issues. There's a whole diverse range of us that come together, and we help the people inside the hospital who are working inside the hospital make things better for us.
Okay, so you provide them the patient's perspective on what could be beneficial for the patients.
Right.
That is, and how big is this group, this consumer advisory group? How many people in that?
Oh, I don't know exactly. I'd have to get back to you with the number.
And how does it work? I mean, how is it funded? Is there a government grant? Is there a hospital grant? How does it?
I think it's a government grant. Yeah, through the government, through the state government.
Okay, so the state government gives a grant, and then these people. And do you think, again, have you seen incidents? Do they where their opinion is taken into account and makes a difference in the hospital functioning? Does it happen?
Where our words make a difference?
Sorry?
Do you mean where we as consumers make a difference?
Correct. Does your opinion, does it get factored into regularly into decision making? How does
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we are so fortunate where we live that we have people that are in positions that can make the decisions who listen to us. So we can see from our meetings what's being raised. We then get to see how the decisions that are made and why. And yeah, we are definitely making changes for the better.
Okay, that is great. That is great.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really, 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 really happy about it, actually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that is one hospital that you're associated, or is it a group of hospitals for which you?
The one that I'm in is a group of hospitals, but a group of two. So I'm a part of the Hospital Health Service, which is the Gold Coast University Hospital and the Robina Hospital. So that is two hospitals on the Gold Coast. And there are two universities, Griffith University and Bond University, that are a part of the hospital system. So we have all the medical doctors and allied health professionals that go to those two universities that are trained up, and they do all of their work experience at the hospital.
Okay.
And they work with us.
And you also talk about this Stroke Support Australia, this business that you are now involved with. So that is, when did you start on it, and how big is it now? If you can tell us something about that.
Yeah, so during COVID, so in 2020, when everything changed and everything shut down and access to services became limited, I knew I needed to step in and help with young stroke. So I became a support coordinator through our National Disability Insurance Scheme. And what I can do for stroke survivors in Australia, once they've left hospital and they get approved for insurance, is I can help connect them to the services they need. So they might need physiotherapy, they might need speech therapy, they might need an occupational therapist to help them with car modifications, home modifications, special things that they need to help eating, getting around the house, podiatry, and cleaners, people to help cook meals. So I can help them get the services that they need. And because I'm a stroke survivor myself, it's something that I actually care about.
And you do that from your home?
Yes.
So probably you have a database or a list somewhere of different service providers that you can call up on, and you can introduce them to these people, and then they can use their.
Exactly. Yes.
And
exactly.
I'm just curious, since you are in this business, how much does a physiotherapist cost, let's say on a hourly basis in where you are? If I was
on the scheme, so if somebody was coming to me and asking me, the person wouldn't pay for it themselves.
Okay. The insurance company will pay.
The insurance company will pay. It's very expensive. So for a physiotherapist, the insurance company will pay $190 or something around that, Australian dollars, to the physiotherapist.
So 190 Australian dollars per hour to the physiotherapist.
Yes, it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
A lot of money. But the person, the stroke survivor, doesn't pay for it. The insurance will pay for it.
And what about a speech therapist? What would be the equivalent for that? Roughly?
It's all the same level. So all the same. Speech, occupational therapy, physiotherapy is all the same. It's around $200 an hour.
And they are, but as far as availability is concerned, they are available. Availability is not an issue, that they're simply not available.
Occupational therapy is very short. So you could be waiting months to see an occupational therapist. We definitely need more occupational therapists here.
And they would go to the patient's place for an hour maybe, and then they come back. They would provide the therapy at home, so as to say.
Yes. So since COVID, a lot of things did change. So since COVID, people will come to your house and they will do the therapy at home.
Are you also seeing, for example, group therapies or group sessions happening via, let's say, Zoom or something like that? Are you finding such things emerging?
Yeah, there's a lot of free things doing that. A lot of free group therapy online.
They are doing that. They're doing it online, and people are joining and getting benefits from them. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but primarily the burden is taken care by the insurance. It's a state insurance. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, if you get approved.
If you
That
get it.
not everyone gets approved. So I didn't get approved, but some people do, some people don't.
And why would not all get approved?
It's case by case.
I mean, they don't consider that person, let's say, disabled enough. Is that what the parameter is?
Right.
Okay, okay, okay. It has nothing to do with the financial status of that person, how much tax he was paying or anything like that. Nothing to do with that.
No, makes no difference.
Okay, okay, okay. And how do you get then paid in the process? When you are interacting and coordinating all this, what is the financial model for yourself?
Yeah, so in the insurance, there is a provision for what I do. So there's a number.
Okay.
So I have a number, and
Right.
and I get paid by the hour. But if I only do 10 minutes of work, I only get paid for 10 minutes.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
So what I do is, say a stroke survivor has left hospital, they're now on their own. They're thinking, oh, how am I going to cover my physiotherapy? How am I going to get my speech therapy? I can't go back to work. I need someone to come and clean my house. I need someone to mow my lawns, keep my gardens. I coordinate all of that for them. I get everything set up for them so they don't need to worry about that stress themselves.
Right. And within the insurance payout itself, there's a provision for your services, as you said.
Yes.
And are there many such people in same status as you, or there are few such people where you are?
There's quite a few, but people who are stroke survivors that only work with stroke survivors, I'm the only one.
I see. Okay. Okay. Because, and then how does maybe the hospital recommends those people to you, or
yes,
that is how it works, different hospitals?
Yes, because I actually care. So when someone comes to me, I care about that person. I want to make sure that they're being looked after.
Right, right. And of course, you can understand probably their problems, their issues, and better than someone who's not been on the same journey. So you're finding a wide variety of stroke events, like elderly, young. How is it presently that you are finding it in Australia? Is there any patterns that you're seeing, or it could be anyone?
It could be anyone, but young stroke is on the rise. So we're seeing more and more young people having strokes all of the time.
Yeah, yeah. No, even in India, and of course, lifestyle factors, job-related stress, etc., they have also contributed, and that is something that we are also seeing in India also. And how did this idea of this book then came about?
The book came about because I felt very alone after my stroke, and I just kept thinking, there's got to be something there. I mean, we can connect online in groups, but I felt, for me as an introvert, it wasn't something I wanted to do in the beginning. I didn't want to connect with people that I didn't know, or talk to people I didn't know. And so I thought, well, a book for me, as somebody who likes books and didn't want to get online, I wouldn't have been able to do a video chat like this a few years ago. So for me, the idea of a book where I could just immerse myself into something where I didn't have to interact with anyone, because I felt such shame about being a young person that had had a stroke. Being able to connect with somebody else in that way without actually physically connecting with them, I wanted to give that gift to somebody like that. But I also wanted to raise awareness, because not everybody is an introvert like me. And so I wanted to be able to give something that would be something physical in the world, that would say young people also have strokes, and they have strokes for a number of different reasons, and they are very worthy and accepted, and want to make a difference.
Correct, correct. And then these people that you have interviewed, they're primarily Australian, or have you found them across different countries?
All over the world. Because I'm in Australia, half of the book, I'll just put the book up so you can see what it looks like. So half of the book, half of the authors in the book are from Australia. The rest of them are from other parts of the world. So the USA, South America, Korea, Cambodia, Finland, Greece, South Africa, and the United Kingdom.
And how did you found them on social media or something like that? Then you send them an email or something like that? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I had already connected with them in groups over a period of time, and I just said to them, I have this idea. This is something that just keeps coming up with me. It's something I want to do. Do you want to be a part of it? Would you be okay with publishing your stroke story in our book? And that's how it came about.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. So they supported you in that, and then and as far as publishing it is concerned, did you find any interest from publishers, or how did you publish that? Is it or how is it?
I had already been involved in 3 other books prior to this one. So
I see. Okay.
So I went to the publisher that I had already been involved with, and I just said to her, I want to do this thing. I want to publish a book about young stroke stories. And she said yes. So she came on the journey with me to publish this story.
Okay, so you were writing books even before stroke? Oh.
No, they actually all came after stroke.
I see. Okay. And
yeah.
what are the topics on those? What kind of subjects are those?
Parenting a child with special needs. So I did that ×2. And then the third one was mothers making a difference. So mothers who had big challenges in their life, and they were turning those challenges into positive things.
Great. So the publisher was already aware of you as an author, and so perhaps it was more easier for them, to take a call on how it is. And how is it? Has the book been received? Are you finding some people purchasing it, some hospitals, or how are you finding it so far?
We have printed and sold 1,000 copies, just over 1,000 copies. We're available on Amazon. We're available through the website, and we're also available through all of the contributing authors. It's been bigger than I ever thought it was going to be. So my mission was just to bring awareness to young stroke and stroke recovery. I never thought ever that I'd be sitting here saying, oh, we have printed over 1,000 copies of this book and it's being distributed all over the world. So I feel very humble, but also very grateful to have been able to do it at the same time.
Right, great. And do you see some common threads amongst the people that you interact with who are probably doing well, or maybe not even otherwise? Are there any common threads in their journeys, some patterns that you're seeing which helps people in their recovery, helps them come out? Anything that you have observed?
Yeah, a huge thing is acceptance. So you're never going to do well until you accept where you are with your stroke. So when you're still grieving the loss of your old self, when you're still in the whole, well, I've lost movement here, I've got this disability now, I can't do this, I can't do that. And when you're in that mindset, it's very hard to have a very good life. But once you do, if you do get acceptance and you accept, okay, this has happened to me, my old life is shifted, it's not the same, but I still have a life and I still have the opportunity to have a very good life, if you can make that shift, that's where you see people go from stroke victim to stroke survivor to thriver. And you can still have very, very purposeful and very, very meaningful, very heart-filled, grateful life after stroke, regardless of what's happened to you.
Right. So acceptance is a big role, you know, and that many of people that we see, they are in denial. And as I was saying, you know, why me, the frustration,
Yeah.
perhaps bargaining with God, okay, do this,
Yeah.
I will do this, you know. So
yeah.
that is the whole lot of stages that one goes through. But yes, perhaps acceptance is the beginning of, you know, then making further move onwards towards recovery.
Yeah. And I know what that's like. That was me. It took me 6 years before I accepted my stroke. It was very dark. I was very depressed. It was very heavy. I was miserable. I couldn't see anything good that had happened to me for a long time. But it shifted, and I'm not there anymore. And I am very glad that I'm not there anymore. But it's up to us as an individual to shift our own mindset, to change that and appreciate what we do have, not what we don't have.
Correct. Absolutely. And in these other stories that you have found again a spectrum. Some people had strong family support, some people had none, and even then they are making well. How do you find them, generally speaking?
Yeah, most people have great family support. Me, myself, not having family support is rare. It's not very common, which is hard. But yeah, most people I do see have good support systems and structures in place. And I think that really does help a lot to get through, you know, the loss of what happened after your stroke.
Right. And you see also people getting back into jobs or changing jobs altogether as a consequence of stroke. What is their, you know, what is your experience? What are you finding, you know, those youngsters particularly?
It depends on the level of disabilities. So I do see some people going back to stroke, to work after stroke, but it just depends. I mean, in Australia, it can be challenging. I mean, there's a lot of people who are really highly judgmental here. So the second you say you have a disability or something, it can limit your opportunities. And a lot of things that come from stroke, like aphasia, for instance, you can't see that when you're looking at someone. So there's a lot of hidden things as well. I do see some people going back to work. It's not something that they all go back to straight away. It's very case by case. And I wish I could give you a very clear answer, but I can't. It's most people know. It's probably the answer that I could say. Most people know.
Most people know, meaning most people, they don't get back to the same job.
They don't go back to work at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So then probably they are supported by insurance or by their family, you know, till for quite a while. And of course, as I said, it also depends upon the kind of or the extent of disabilities that one is finding.
Right.
That is also there. And of course, in our chats, and probably you have also met some of them, we have chatted with, you know, some, I think it is Tom from US, who suffered severe aphasia after stroke, but did a good amount of recovery. Then he was with National Aphasia Association of USA for some time, for I think about 8 years, and has started now his own trust fund to support people with aphasia. We had Gopi Tejwani, who was a professor before stroke, suffered a severe stroke, but came back to teaching, although in a very limited manner, for another about 8 years. So it varies, as you said, from person to person, because stroke, as you know, is a very, very difficult and an uncertain situation. There are no clear patterns. Which area of the brain, how much is the damage, how much can the recovery be?
Yeah.
The determination of the individual, the determination of the family, all these factors, come together, which does make it quite a different disease from many others, where you pop a pill and then hope for the best. Many other diseases are in that category. You simply take some injection or some drugs, and then supposedly they will do their job. Whereas here, a whole lot of effort is required to be done by yourself, by the individual, and by the people around. So that is where maybe the variances come from.
Yeah.
Wonderful, Latisha. It's the way that you have looked at it, the way you have found purpose in it, the way you maybe things also aligned, but obviously they align when you make the efforts. They would not align when you don't make the efforts. So when you continuously stretch yourself, keep on, as you said, applying for jobs, keep on reaching out to people, which is how things ultimately turn around. And it is great to see that happening in you. And I'm sure many people who have interacted with you in turn probably would have taken your thoughts, your life experiences, and probably must be trying to make the changes in themselves as a consequence. Which is because communication is a two-way process. While you are speaking, I'm listening, and I'm speaking, you are listening. It's an interactive thing. So it is wonderful the way that you have turned around, and that I read somewhere something like finding medicine in poison.
Yes, exactly.
There is that concept. I don't know if you read about it or if you know about it. It's a Buddhist concept that life has served something bad. How do you then find purpose in it? Those that do, I think their time passes quite well. Time will pass anyway.
That's it. The time will pass anyway. I say that all the time. The time's going to pass anyway.
Yeah. It is your attitude and your responses which will help you and others, pass the time in a whatever time we have here, in a more positive, more manner.
Yeah.
So wonderful talking to you, Latisha. I think it's been a long time, almost.
Well, it's been a long time for the person behind me.
He also needs to wait. I just in closing, of course, you talked about acceptance. Any other tips or any other ideas that you would like to give both to the family as well as to the affected of how they can, move forward in this journey for your experiences?
I think probably the biggest thing is just give yourself time and don't be hard on yourself. So we can be our own worst critics because we have in our minds a story of how things should be. And then stroke comes along and things are not how we thought they should be. So my advice would be just let things be, give yourself time to heal, give yourself time to recover, give yourself time to accept that things may or may not. I mean, things could go back to normal. Please don't do that for some people, but they may not go back to normal for others. But you can still have a very, very meaningful, purposeful, loving, connected life, a very worthy life after stroke.
Right. Wonderful. Thanks a lot, Latisha. It's wonderful to have you here and hear from you. And I'm sure on our groups also, as we share and we talk more and more about it, it will help others also going forward. So thank you very much for your time, for your sharings. And of course, we will be in touch going forward too. And I really wish you well. And I hope that everyone, that you interact with, and you and us, we learn and share and inspire one another, to a more purposeful living. Because that is a life lived well, actually. Life with purpose is a life lived well.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time. And of course, we'll be in touch.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm closing the meeting now. Namaste. Okay. Thank you.